Smoke filled the air. Buildings that once reached for the stars now lay in ruins. The great cities of Earth had fallen. 6 days had passed since the last human battleship exploded in orbit. 6 days of silence from Earth Command. 6 days of collective victory celebrations. Captain James Reed opened his eyes to darkness. His head hurt. Something warm and sticky ran down his face. Blood. His blood. He tried to move and pain shot through his body. Slowly, carefully, he pushed aside the concrete slab that had shielded him when Earth Command collapsed. "Anyone alive?" he called out, his voice hoarse from dust and disuse. Silence answered him at first, then a weak cough somewhere to his left. "Here," a woman's voice said. "I'm still here." Reed crawled toward the sound, finding Lieutenant Parker half buried under a fallen desk. Her leg was trapped, but she seemed otherwise unharmed. Together, they worked to free her. "How long?" Parker asked as Reed helped her stand. 6 days, I think," Reed replied, checking his watch. The Special Forces timepiece had survived the attack. The command bunker took a direct hit. Then we lost. Parker's voice cracked. Reed didn't answer immediately. They both knew what had happened. The collective had come 3 years ago, with their massive ships and advanced weapons. Humanity fought hard, but was outmatched. The final assault on Earth Command was meant to be the end. "We need to find others," Reed said instead. They searched through the rubble, finding 5 more survivors. A communications tech named Wilson, 2 security officers, and 2 more soldiers. 7 humans alive in what had been humanity's last stronghold. 50 miles above Earth, Overseer Dex watched the blue planet through the viewing portal of the collective command ship. Victory tasted sweet. The humans had fought well, better than expected, but the outcome was never in doubt. The resource extraction teams report successful establishment of mining operations in all major regions, his assistant reported. Minimal resistance encountered. "Excellent," Dex replied. "And the remaining human population? Scattered and disorganized. Our scouts report small groups hiding in remote areas, but nothing of concern. Without their military structure, they pose no threat." Dex nodded, his elongated head reflecting the blue light from Earth. "Begin Phase 2. I want extraction rates doubled by the end of the month. The Central Authority is pleased with our progress. There is one anomaly," Overseer, his assistant added. "Several outposts have reported unusual seismic readings from the ocean floors. Earth is geologically active." "It's nothing." Dex dismissed the concern with a wave of his four-fingered hand. "The humans are defeated, their armies destroyed, their navies sunk, their air forces shot from the skies. What remains is merely cleanup." Admiral Elena Voss was not dead, despite what the collective believed. The destruction of her battleship, the UES Defiant, had been carefully staged. As the collective celebration continued above, she sat in a small control room 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Lewis, her second in command, handed her a tablet. "Deepwater stations 2 through 17 all report ready status. Station 1 is at 92% capacity. Stations 18 and 19 were damaged during activation, but repairs are underway." Voss studied the reports. When the collective first arrived, Earth's unified government had enacted dozens of last resort protocols. Most were known to military leadership, but Protocol Jerusalem B8 was different, classified beyond top secret, known only to a handful of people around the world. For 20 years before the invasion, humanity had secretly built massive underwater complexes, the deepwater stations. Hidden beneath the oceans, these self-sufficient installations housed millions of people, advanced manufacturing facilities, and a military force unlike anything on the surface. "Begin Phase 1 transmission," Voss ordered. Lewis nodded and entered a command sequence. Throughout Earth's oceans, hidden transmitters activated, sending a low-frequency signal that traveled through water and ground. To most, it would seem like natural ocean noise. But to those who knew what to listen for, It carried a message. We are not defeated. The drums are beating. Reed and his small group of survivors had made it out of the ruined command bunker. They moved carefully through the destroyed city, avoiding collective patrols. The aliens were everywhere, their smooth exoskeletons gleaming in the sunlight as they supervised automated mining machines that tore into the earth. "Where are we going, Captain?" Parker asked as they took shelter in an abandoned subway tunnel. Reed checked his watch again. Every hour on the hour, he held it close to his ear. The others thought he was checking if it still worked. "We need to reach the coast," he finally answered. "East to the Atlantic. That's 300 miles through collective territory." Wilson, the communications tech, protested. "We'll never make it. We have to try," Reed said firmly. He didn't explain further. Couldn't explain that his watch wasn't just telling time. It was receiving something. A pattern of vibrations so subtle only the Special Forces timepieces could detect it. A pattern he recognized from his classified briefing 2 years ago. 3 long pulses, 2 short, 3 long again. Drumbeats. At Collective Outpost 37, located on what had once been a coastal fishing village, Science Officer Mira noticed something strange. The seismic sensors were picking up an unusual pattern of vibrations from the ocean floor. "Probable submarine volcanic activity," her assistant suggested. "No," Mira said, studying the readings more carefully. "It's too regular. Too rhythmic." She adjusted the sensors, amplifying the signal. When she converted the vibrations to sound, a chill ran through her body. It sounded like beating drums, slow, steady, deliberate. "Should we report this to command?" her assistant asked. Mira hesitated. Overseer Dex had made it clear Earth was secured. Any suggestion otherwise might be seen as questioning his authority. "Continue monitoring," she decided. "If it persists, we'll report it." As the sun set on the 7th day of occupation, the collective continued their victory celebrations. They had crushed Earth's military, destroyed its cities, and begun extracting its resources. The war was over. Or so they thought. Deep beneath the oceans, in hidden chambers shielded from detection, humanity was not defeated. Engineers brought massive factories online. Scientists finalized weapons designed specifically to target collective weaknesses. Soldiers trained in specialized underwater combat suits. And through the waters of Earth, a rhythmic signal continued to spread, reaching survivors, activating sleeper agents, growing stronger each day. The enemy thought they had won. They would soon learn otherwise. The war drums were just beginning to beat. 2 months had passed since Earth fell to the collective. The alien invaders had established extraction colonies across the planet's surface. Giant machines tore into mountains and forests, taking whatever resources the collective needed. Most humans who survived the initial attacks now hid in remote areas, struggling to stay alive. Captain James Reed and his small group of survivors had been moving east for weeks. They traveled at night, hiding during the day. Their journey had not been easy. Twice they nearly walked into collective patrols. Once they had to hide for 3 days when a collective scout ship hovered over the forest they were passing through. But the coded pulses in Reed's watch kept coming, guiding them forward. The drumbeats had become stronger and clearer. "We're getting close," Reed told the others as they rested in an abandoned farmhouse. "Maybe 2 more days of travel." "Close to what?" Wilson asked. The communications tech had asked this question many times during their journey. "You still haven't told us what we're looking for." Reed looked at his tired companions. They deserved to know something. "Hope," he said simply. "We're looking for hope." Commander Kell of Collective Intelligence stood before Overseer Dex, trying to keep his posture straight despite his exhaustion. 17 scout ships have gone missing in the past month, Kell reported, all near coastal regions or over deep ocean areas. Dex's large eyes narrowed. "Mechanical failures, weather conditions. Unlikely. The disappearances follow a pattern." "And there's more," Kell continued. "Our primary extraction platform in the North Atlantic region was destroyed 3 days ago. Destroyed? How? Dex demanded. Unknown. The platform reported unusual vibrations in the water below. Then all communication ceased. When our ships arrived, nothing remained but floating debris. Dex turned to the viewing portal, watching Earth's blue surface. The victory that had seemed so complete now felt less certain. Increase patrols in all ocean regions, he ordered, and send a message to Central Authority. Request additional security forces. Sir, Kell said hesitantly, some of our scientists have noted patterns in the seismic activity. They believe it may be artificial. Meaning what? Meaning someone may be sending signals through the ocean floor. Dex was silent for a long moment. Find the source, he finally ordered. Whatever it is, eliminate it. Deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Admiral Elena Voss studied the holographic display showing all 19 deepwater stations. Most glowed green, indicating full operational status. A few showed yellow, still coming online or dealing with minor issues. Deepwater 7 reports their manufacturing centers are at full capacity, Commander Lewis reported. They've completed the first batch of Poseidon suits. Voss nodded with satisfaction. The Poseidon combat suits were a key part of their strategy. Advanced armor designed for underwater combat, but equally effective on land or in air. And the Leviathan vessels. The first 3 are ready for deployment. 6 more will be completed within the week. Voss allowed herself a small smile. For 20 years, Earth had prepared for the possibility of alien invasion by building these hidden underwater bases. While the surface military fought conventional battles, Deepwater waited, hidden and safe, ready to strike when the enemy thought they had won. What about the surface teams? Voss asked. Captain Reed's group should reach Inlet Point tomorrow. Dr. Wells is already there to meet them. Dr. Marcus Wells was one of the chief engineers who had designed the deepwater stations. He had been on the surface when the final attack came, making his way to one of the secret entry points. Good, Voss said. It's time to increase the tempo. She pressed a sequence on her control panel. Throughout Earth's oceans, the drumbeat signals increased in strength and frequency. The pace was quickening, the rhythm building. Reed and his team reached the coastal town near midnight. Once a popular beach destination, it now stood empty and partially destroyed. The collective had little interest in small towns with no strategic or resource value. This way, Reed said, leading them toward the shoreline. We came all this way for the ocean, Parker asked, confusion in her voice. Before Reed could answer, a figure stepped out from behind a damaged beach house. Reed reached for his weapon, then stopped. The man was human, older, with gray hair and glasses. Captain Reed, the man asked. I'm Dr. Marcus Wells. I've been waiting for you. Reed checked his watch. The drumbeats led us here. Wells smiled. Yes, the drumbeat protocol is working perfectly. Follow me, please. He led them to what looked like an old boathouse at the end of a pier. Inside, Wells moved to what appeared to be a normal wall and pressed his hand against it. A hidden door slid open, revealing a narrow elevator. What is this place? Wilson asked as they all crowded into the elevator. The entrance to our salvation, Wells replied. He pressed a button, and the elevator began to descend. Welcome to Deepwater. The elevator dropped for what seemed like forever. When it finally stopped and the doors opened, Reed and his team gasped in amazement. They stood at the edge of an enormous underwater city. Massive domes connected by tunnels spread out before them. Buildings rose within the domes. People moved about everywhere. And in large construction bays, they could see advanced weapons and vehicles being assembled. This is impossible, Parker whispered. Not impossible, Dr. Wells said. Just secret. While the collective thought they were fighting all of humanity, they were only fighting what we allowed them to see. He led them to a transport vehicle that carried them through a tunnel into the main dome. As they traveled, Wells explained, there are 19 deepwater installations around the world. Each houses between 50,000 and 2 million people. We have manufacturing, agriculture, power generation, everything we need to survive and rebuild. How long has this existed? Reed asked. 20 years, ever since our deep space telescopes first detected the collective fleet. We knew they might come someday. We prepared. The transport stopped at a large building in the center of the dome. As they entered, Reed saw a familiar face waiting for them. Admiral Voss. He said in disbelief, "Your ship was destroyed." "That's what we wanted the collective to believe," Voss replied with a smile. "Welcome to Deepwater Command, Captain." She led them to a war room where a large holographic display showed Earth and the positions of collective forces. "For 2 months, we've been gathering strength, testing their defenses, learning their weaknesses," Voss explained. "Now we're ready to begin real operations." "The collective thinks they've won," Dr. Wells added. "They have no idea what's coming." "And what is coming?" Reed asked. Admiral Voss's face hardened with determination. "War, Captain. But this time, on our terms." On the collective command ship, Science Officer Mira burst into Overseer Dex's quarters without permission. "Overseer, you need to see this," she said urgently, activating her datapad. The screen showed a recording from a coastal monitoring station. In the video, the water near a collective mining platform began to churn and bubble. Then something massive rose from the depths, a sleek, black vessel unlike any human ship the collective had encountered before. The vessel fired once. The mining platform erupted in flames. And just before the recording ended, the monitoring station picked up a sound, a rhythmic, pounding beat that echoed through the water. "War drums." "What is that?" Dex demanded. Mira's voice shook as she answered. "I believed, sir, that we may have made a serious miscalculation about human capabilities. Far below, in the oceans of Earth, humanity was awakening. The drums were getting louder." 6 months had passed since the collective claimed victory over Earth. What began as scattered attacks against their outposts had grown into something more organized, more dangerous. In the past month alone, 17 major mining operations had been destroyed. 34 ships had vanished. Supply lines were disrupted. And always before each attack came the sound of drums. High Commander Vex stepped off his ship onto the deck of Overseer Dex's command vessel. He had been sent directly from the collective's homeworld to assess the situation. This was supposed to be a completed conquest, Vex said coldly as he walked with Dex to the command center. "The Central Authority is displeased with your progress reports." "The humans had contingencies we did not anticipate," Dex replied, trying to hide his nervousness. "They had prepared for our arrival." "Impossible. Our analysis indicated they had no knowledge of our existence until our fleet entered their system. Nevertheless, they were ready." Dex activated a holographic display showing Earth's oceans. "We've detected energy signatures from deep underwater. Our scouts cannot penetrate beyond certain depths without losing contact." "Because of their technology?" Vex asked. "Because of the water itself," Dex explained. "Our ships and sensors are not designed for deep ocean environments. The pressure crushes our drones. The water blocks our scans." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying you cannot defeat primitives because of water? 2/3 of their planet is covered in it. How did you not account for this?" Before Dex could answer, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Multiple contacts rising from the Atlantic region," an officer reported. "They're attacking our primary processing station." On the display, dozens of sleek vessels emerged from the ocean depths. Unlike the human ships the collective had destroyed during the initial invasion, these were smaller, faster, and seemed to phase through water like it wasn't there. "What are those?" Vex demanded. Dex had no answer. Captain Reed stood on the bridge of the Leviathan-class submarine Defiance. Through the advanced viewing screens, he watched as Poseidon strike teams attacked the collective processing station. The Poseidon suits gave their wearers incredible strength and speed, whether underwater or on land. All teams reporting successful breaches. Lieutenant Telly Arias reported from the communication station. Collective forces are in disarray. Reed nodded. Begin broadcast. Reyes pressed a sequence on her control panel. Immediately, powerful speakers on the Defiance and all other attack vessels began emitting the now familiar drumbeat. The rhythmic pounding echoed through water and air. Reed had learned that the drums served multiple purposes. They were a psychological weapon against the collective, whose sensitive hearing made the low-frequency beats physically painful. They were a rallying signal for human resistance fighters on the surface. And they were a timing mechanism, helping coordinate attacks across vast distances. "Sir," Reyes called out, "Admiral Voss is requesting you return to Deepwater Command after the operation." They've awakened him. Reed knew immediately who she meant. General Thomas Grant, the legendary commander who had led Earth's forces during the early days of the invasion before being critically wounded. He had been placed in cryosleep in Deepwater 1, waiting for the day when he would be needed again. That day has come, Reed thought. Director Anna Hayes stood at the window of her office in Deepwater 1, watching the vast underwater city at work. As civilian leader of the Deepwater government, she had overseen the transition from waiting to fighting. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Admiral Voss entered, followed by a tall man with a stern face and gray hair. Despite months in cryosleep, General Grant stood straight and strong. "Director Hayes," Voss said, "General Grant has been fully briefed on our situation." Hayes nodded. "Welcome back, General. We've been saving a war for you." "So I hear," Grant replied, his voice deep and gravelly. "I've reviewed the battle reports. Your Deepwater forces have performed admirably. But it's time to take the next step." "The surface," Hayes guessed. "Yes, we can't win this war from hiding. We need to reclaim the land." Hayes turned back to the window. "We've spent 6 months building our strength, striking from the shadows. Are we ready to face them directly?" "We won't be alone," Grant said. "Our drumbeat broadcasts have reached resistance groups worldwide. They're waiting for the signal to rise up together." Hayes considered this. Millions of humans still survived on the surface, hiding in mountains, forests, and ruins. Many had heard the drums. Many were ready to fight. "Very well," she finally said. "When do we begin?" "Immediately," Grant answered. "I've already asked Admiral Voss to prepare Operation Thunderstrike." Hayes raised an eyebrow at Voss, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed for moving ahead before approval. "It's a full-scale assault on their main processing centers," Voss explained, "coordinated with surface resistance groups. If successful, it will cripple their resource extraction operations and force them to pull back to defensive positions." "And the drums?" Hayes asked. "Will beat louder than ever," Grant promised. Reed returned to Deepwater 12 hours later. The attack had been completely successful. Not only had they destroyed the processing station, but they had captured intact collective technology and taken prisoners, the first live collective specimens for study. He was immediately summoned to the command center, where he found Admiral Voss, General Grant, and Director Hayes gathered around a holographic display of Earth. "Captain Reed," Grant greeted him. "Your reputation is well earned. Excellent work on the operation." "Thank you, sir," Reed replied, somewhat in awe of the legendary general. "We're moving to the next phase," Voss explained, gesturing to the display. Red dots marked collective strongholds around the globe. Operation Thunderstrike will target these facilities simultaneously. Surface teams will coordinate with Deepwater forces, Grant added. Your team will lead the assault on their Eastern Command Center. Reed studied the plans. It was ambitious and dangerous. But after 6 months of strikes from the shadows, perhaps it was time to bring the fight into the open. "There's one more thing you should see," Hayes said. She nodded to a technician, who activated another display. A video began playing, showing what appeared to be a test chamber. Inside, a collective soldier was restrained. When a low-frequency drumbeat began playing, the alien writhed in obvious pain, purple blood seeping from its hearing organs. Their auditory systems are far more sensitive than we realized, Hayes explained. Dr. Wells has developed devices that can amplify our drumbeat broadcasts to debilitating levels. Sound is a weapon, Reed said thoughtfully. Exactly, Grant confirmed. We hit them with the drums. Then we hit them with everything else. High Commander Vex stood amid the ruins of what had been their largest processing station. Around him, collective soldiers searched for survivors and salvageable equipment. They came from below, Commander Kell reported. Our sensors gave only seconds of warning. And the sound? Vex asked. This drumming they broadcast. It seems to be their signature, a psychological tactic perhaps. Vex wasn't convinced it was merely psychological. He had heard the recordings. Something about the rhythmic beats disturbed him on a physical level. We must adapt, he said finally. Double our orbital patrols. Deploy our remaining ships to defensive positions. And send word to Central Authority. We need reinforcements. As he spoke, his personal communicator chimed with an urgent alert. All across Earth, collective installations were reporting the same thing. Energy signatures rising from the oceans, approaching fast. And with them came the sound of drums, louder than ever before. The humans were no longer hiding. They were coming. 1 year had passed since Earth fell to the collective. What the aliens had thought would be a simple occupation had turned into a desperate struggle. The humans, far from defeated, had emerged from their ocean depths with weapons and technology that matched or even surpassed the collective's own. Operation Thunderstrike had changed everything. In a single day, human forces had destroyed or captured 37 major collective installations around the globe. Thousands of collective soldiers had fallen. Dozens of ships had been shot from the sky. And now, 3 months later, the war for Earth's surface was in full swing. Colonel William Drake stood on a hill overlooking what had once been Chicago. Parts of the city still burned from the battle that had raged for 3 days. His surface reclamation team had finally driven the last collective forces out the previous night. Status report. He called into his radio. All sectors secured, came the reply from his second-in-command. We found over 200 human survivors hiding in the underground train tunnels. Drake nodded with satisfaction. Rescuing survivors was just as important as defeating the enemy. Every human saved was another potential fighter, another piece of humanity preserved. Get them food and medical attention, he ordered. Then have them moved to the safe zone. He turned as a Poseidon transport rose from Lake Michigan behind him. The sleek vessel hovered above the water before gliding toward the shore. When it landed, the side hatch opened to reveal Captain Reed. Colonel. Reed greeted him, stepping onto the muddy ground. Congratulations on taking back Chicago. Couldn't have done it without those sonic cannons your deepwater engineers provided, Drake replied, shaking Reed's hand. The collective troops ran as soon as we started broadcasting the drums through them. Reed nodded. The discovery that the collective's sensitive hearing made them vulnerable to certain frequencies had been a game-changer. Now, every human attack began with powerful sonic weapons broadcasting the rhythmic war drums. The effect was devastating. Collective soldiers experienced intense pain, confusion, and often bleeding from their auditory organs. Command sent me to brief you on the next phase, Reed said. We're pushing east, all the way to the Atlantic. Emissary Lorne was not a warrior. Before the Earth invasion, he had been a scholar, studying other species. Now, as the collective's situation grew more desperate, the Central Authority had sent him to attempt what their military leaders could not achieve: peace. High Commander Vex was not pleased by Lorne's arrival. Negotiation is surrender, Vex argued as they stood in what remained of the command ship's strategy room. We cannot show weakness. The Central Authority disagrees, Lorne replied calmly. We have lost 23% of our invasion force. Resource extraction is at 12% of projected levels. This campaign is failing. We underestimated them, Vex admitted reluctantly. They had preparations we did not detect. Underwater civilizations we did not know about. Yes, Lorne said. And now we must face reality. The humans have proven more resourceful than any species we have encountered. If we cannot defeat them quickly, we must find another solution. Before Vex could respond, the familiar alarm sounded. More attacks. More drums. Chief Engineer Morgan Taylor walked through the massive factory floor of Deepwater 4. All around her, workers assembled the newest generation of weapons in Earth's arsenal, hybrid technology that combined human innovation with captured collective science. The Mark I sonic cannons are ready for deployment, she told Admiral Voss, who had come to inspect the progress personally. Twice the range of the previous model, and we've modified the frequency to target their neural systems more effectively. Voss nodded approvingly. And the mobile units. Taylor led her to another section of the factory, where smaller, portable versions of the sonic weapons were being loaded onto transport vehicles. Every surface team will have them within a week, Taylor explained. And we've also developed these. She held up what looked like a simple wristwatch. Personal sonic emitters. They don't have the power of the larger weapons, but they'll give our soldiers protection in close combat. Excellent work, Voss said. She looked around at the bustle of activity. A year ago, we were hiding. Now we're pushing them back across the entire planet. It's not over yet, Taylor cautioned. Their orbital platforms are still operational, and our intel suggests they've called for reinforcements. All the more reason to move quickly, Voss replied. Director Hayes is meeting with their emissary tomorrow. Taylor looked surprised. They want to talk. They want to survive, Voss said grimly. The meeting took place on a small island in the Pacific. Director Hayes arrived in a heavily armed deep-water vessel, accompanied by General Grant and a security team. The collective representatives, Emissary Lorne and Commander Kell, came in a small shuttle. They sat across from each other at a simple table set up on the beach. You have proven formidable, Lorne began, his translator converting his speech to English. The collective recognizes your right to defend your world. How generous, Hayes replied dryly. After you tried to conquer it. We believed your civilization was limited to the surface, Lorne explained. Our studies showed no evidence of your underwater habitats or advanced sonic weapons. We kept them hidden for exactly this reason, Grant said. We've been preparing for possible invasion for decades. Lorne's large eyes blinked slowly. The collective proposes a ceasefire. We will withdraw from certain regions, maintaining only essential resource collection operations. Hayes and Grant exchanged looks. This was not an offer of peace. It was a request for breathing room. Unacceptable, Hayes said firmly. Complete withdrawal from Earth and its orbit. That is our only term. Impossible. Commander Kell interjected. We have invested too much. The Central Authority would never. He stopped suddenly, his head tilting as if listening. From the water behind the human delegation, a low sound began to rise. The now familiar rhythm of war drums. You brought weapons to a peace meeting, Kell demanded, his translator unable to hide the fear in his voice. Not weapons, Hayes corrected him. A reminder. That sound you hear. It's coming from 20 miles away. Imagine what our new long-range sonic cannons can do from that distance. As if to emphasize her point, the drumbeat grew louder. Kell began to shake visibly. Even Lorne seemed uncomfortable. Take our message to your Central Authority, General Grant said. Full withdrawal, or we continue our campaign. The drums will follow your ships wherever they go. Back on the collective command ship, High Commander Vex received the report from the failed negotiation. They refuse anything but our complete surrender, Lorne explained. And they demonstrated new sonic weapons that can reach incredible distances. Vex turned to the viewing screen showing Earth below. So much blue, so much water. How could they have misjudged so badly? Begin preparations for a fighting withdrawal, he ordered. We will consolidate our forces at key defensive positions while we await reinforcements. And if reinforcements don't come? Kell asked quietly. Vex had no answer. In the distance, they could hear it. the steady beat of drums growing louder with each passing day. 18 months after the collective had declared victory over Earth, their remaining forces huddled in fortified positions around their last major command center. What had begun as a simple conquest had turned into the worst military disaster in collective history. Their once mighty invasion fleet was reduced to a handful of damaged ships. Their resource extraction operations had completely ceased, and still the drums kept beating. High Commander Vex stared at the tactical display with mounting despair. The human forces were closing in from all sides. Surface teams from the west, aerial attacks from the south, and from the east, from the Atlantic Ocean, came the dreaded deepwater fleets. The reinforcements from Central Authority, he asked Commander Kell, though he already knew the answer. No response to our latest communication, Kell replied grimly. I believe they may have abandoned us. Vex nodded slowly. It made strategic sense. The Central Authority had many worlds under its control. Why waste resources on a failed invasion? How long until the humans reach our position? Hours, Kell said. Their advance is steady. And the drums? He didn't need to finish. They could all hear them. A constant, pounding rhythm that grew louder each day. Prepare for final defense, Vex ordered. We may not survive, but we will make them pay for every step. Admiral Elena Voss stood on the bridge of the flagship Leviathan, leading the Eastern Assault Force toward the collective's last stronghold. On the main viewer, she could see the other prongs of the attack, Colonel Drake's surface forces advancing from the west, and the aerial squadrons from the south led by newly promoted Major Parker. All forces in position, Captain Reed reported from his station. Waiting for your command. Voss checked the time. The coordinated attack was scheduled to begin in exactly 10 minutes. After 18 months of fighting, the war was finally coming to an end. Start the broadcast, she ordered. Maximum power. Throughout the human fleet, massive sonic projectors activated. The war drums began to beat at their highest intensity yet. The low, rhythmic pounding traveled through air, ground, and water, an unmistakable signal that humanity was coming. Inside the collective stronghold, soldiers fell to their knees as the sound penetrated their defenses. Blood seeped from their auditory organs. Their neural systems, so sensitive to certain frequencies, overloaded with pain. Now Voss commanded. All forces, advance. General Thomas Grant and Director Anna Hayes watched the battle unfold from Deepwater Command. The holographic display showed human forces converging on the last collective position from all directions. They're not surrendering, Hayes noted as the fighting intensified. Despite everything, they continue to resist. Pride, Grant said. They were supposed to conquer us easily. Instead, we humiliated them. Hayes nodded thoughtfully. What do we do with the survivors? There will be some. That's a political question, Grant replied. My job is winning the war. Yours is deciding what comes after. Before Hayes could respond, Chief Engineer Morgan Taylor rushed into the command center. We've done it, she exclaimed. The global sonic network is online. Hayes and Grant exchanged surprised looks. The global sonic network had been Taylor's most ambitious project, linking all of Earth's deepwater stations and surface outposts into a single system that could broadcast the war drums across the entire planet simultaneously. It wasn't supposed to be ready for another week, Grant said. My team worked around the clock, Taylor explained. We can activate it now. Hayes considered this for a moment. Do it, she finally decided. Let's end this. Captain Reed led his strike team through the corridors of the collective command center. The aliens have fought hard, but the sonic weapons had left them disoriented and weak. Most had fallen back to the central chamber, their last line of defense. Prepare for breach, Reed ordered as his team took positions around the sealed door. On my mark. Before he could give the command, a deafening sound filled the air. The war drums, louder than ever before, coming from everywhere at once. Reed's team was protected by their special headgear, but he knew the collective soldiers inside would be experiencing unimaginable pain. "What is that?" Lieutenant Rice asked, her voice barely audible over the thunderous beating. "The global network," Reed realized. "They've activated it early." He didn't wait any longer. "Breach now." The door blew open, and Reed's team stormed into the central chamber. They found dozens of collective soldiers writhing on the floor, completely incapacitated by the sonic assault. In the center, High Commander Vex stood alone, bleeding from his hearing organs but still defiant. "Cease the sound," Vex managed to say through his translator. "We surrender." Reed signaled to headquarters, and moments later, the drums reduced to a more tolerable level, still present, but no longer debilitating. "Your surrender is accepted," Reed told Vex. "The war is over." 3 days later, Director Hayes stood with Admiral Voss, General Grant, and Captain Reed on a beach near what had once been the collective's main landing zone. The remaining alien ships were taking off, carrying the surviving invaders back to space. "Do you think they'll come back?" Reed asked as they watched the ships shrink into the distance. "Not them," Grant said confidently. "They've learned their lesson. But others might someday. And we'll be ready," Voss added. "The deep-water stations will remain operational. Earth will never be caught unprepared again." Hayes nodded in agreement. "We should send them a message, though. Something to take back to any other species thinking of invading Earth." "I think we already have," Reed said, pointing to a nearby hill. On top of the hill stood a simple monument the surface teams had erected, a large drum with a plaque that read, "To those who thought they had won." "The drums are always beating." "Fitting," Hayes said with a smile. "Now comes the hard part, rebuilding what was lost." The last collective ship disappeared from view. Earth was free again. The reconstruction would be challenging, but humanity had proven its resilience. From the depths of the oceans, they had risen to reclaim their world. As night fell, celebrations began around the globe. In city ruins and deep-water stations, in mountain hideouts and forest camps, humans gathered to mark their victory. And everywhere, as a reminder of what they had overcome, the drums played, no longer as weapons, but as symbols of their unity and strength. The enemy had thought they won, until they heard the war drums. Now those drums would echo through the stars, a warning to any who might threaten Earth again. Humanity was not to be underestimated. Humanity would always rise again. The drums would always beat. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from over 30 species gathered in small clusters, their voices hushed despite the vast space. They came from worlds with 3 suns, from ocean planets, and from the edges of black holes, yet they all shared one common feeling today: fear. Admiral Krell of the Arcturian Empire adjusted his ceremonial armor and leaned toward Ambassador Loth. "Is it true? Have they really sent it?" he asked, mandibles clicking with anxiety. Loth's skin rippled in the Mantodian equivalent of a nod. "The humans have deployed the Nemesis to our sector. It will arrive within 3 cycles." A visible shudder passed through their group. Even General Urzek, a massive reptilian warrior whose species had conquered 17 worlds, seemed to shrink at the news. "I've heard it can appear out of nowhere," whispered a delegate from the silicon-based Quartz Collective. "One moment empty space, the next, destruction." "That's nothing," said a blue-skinned diplomat. "My cousin served on an outpost near human space. He swears he saw the Nemesis absorb a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon and then return fire with twice the power." Admiral Krell snorted. "Exaggerations. No ship cold." "Do you remember the Battle of Proction?" interrupted General Urzak. The group fell silent. No one needed reminding of how a single human vessel had decimated the most powerful fleet in the Dominion Armada. "What I don't understand," said Ambassador Loth, "is how we ever underestimated them in the first place." 20 years earlier, humanity had made its first contact with the galactic community. Earth had just developed faster than light travel, and their exploratory vessel, a small, ungainly ship called the Horizon, had stumbled upon a Galactic Council outpost. The Council's initial assessment was dismissive. Humans were physically unimpressive. No natural weapons, average strength, unremarkable senses. Their technology was considered primitive by galactic standards. In the vast library of spacefaring species, humanity seemed destined to be a footnote, perhaps useful for trade, but nothing more. This changed when the Dominion, a powerful coalition of militaristic species, attacked Earth's first colony on Proxima Centauri without provocation. The small settlement of 10,000 people was nearly wiped out before help could arrive. The galactic community expected humans to retreat, to abandon their colonization efforts, perhaps to beg for protection from the Council. Instead, humanity did something that shocked every observer species. They built the Nemesis. Captain Jack Reynolds stood by the viewport in his quarters, looking out at the shipyard where the Nemesis hung in space like a predator at rest. Even after commanding her for 3 years, the sight still filled him with a complex mixture of pride and solemn responsibility. The ship didn't look particularly frightening at first glance. Unlike the massive dreadnoughts of the Arcturian Empire or the organic-looking vessels of the Mantodian Alliance, the Nemesis had clean, functional lines. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, creating the impression that you were looking at a ship-shaped hole in space. Only the occasional pulse of blue light from the engine ports and weapon systems suggested the power contained within. A chime at his door pulled Reynolds from his thoughts. "Enter," he called, turning from the viewport. Admiral Wilson stepped into the room. Despite being in her 60s, she moved with the energy of someone half her age. Her gray hair was cut in a practical style, and her uniform bore the simple insignia of Earth Defense Command. "Jack," she said with a nod, "you've read the briefing." Reynolds gestured to his tablet. "The Dominion's on the move again. 3 neutral systems attacked in the past month. The Galactic Council is finally asking for our help." "Not just our help," Wilson corrected. "They're asking specifically for the Nemesis." A grim smile crossed Reynolds' weathered face. "Funny how quickly they've changed their tune. From primitive apes to begging for our protection in less than 2 decades. Don't get cocky. The Dominion's fleet has grown since your last encounter. Intelligence suggests they've developed countermeasures based on your previous engagements." Reynolds shrugged. "They always do. And we always have something new for them." Admiral Wilson studied him for a moment. "This mission is different, Jack. The Council intelligence suggests something bigger behind these Dominion movements. They're not just conquering for resources anymore. They're looking for something. Any idea what?" "No. That's part of your mission. Find out what's driving them. And if necessary, stop it." She handed him a secure data chip. "Full mission details. Your crew has been notified and is preparing for departure." Reynolds took the chip and slipped it into his uniform pocket. "When do we leave?" 12 hours. The Council is sending a representative to join you." Reynolds frowned. "We don't need a babysitter. Consider it a diplomatic necessity. Besides, having eyes on the inside of the Council might prove useful." Admiral Wilson moved toward the door but paused. "Jack, I know your history with the Dominion after what happened at the colony. Remember that this mission is about protection, not revenge." After the Admiral left, Reynolds returned to the viewport. The Nemesis would soon detach from the shipyard and head toward the front lines again. He thought about his crew, the best Earth had to offer, handpicked for their skills and adaptability. What made the Nemesis truly dangerous wasn't its advanced weapon systems, its adaptive shields, or even its revolutionary stealth technology. It was the human minds that controlled it. Unpredictable, creative, and capable of the kind of lateral thinking that so often confused and confounded enemy tacticians. Reynolds had seen the reports on how alien military academies now study human warfare, trying to understand their seemingly chaotic but effective strategies. He'd heard the rumors about how Dominion ship captains would surrender rather than face the Nemesis in battle, the most feared warship in the galaxy, a metal shell filled with the most dangerous species the stars had ever encountered, humans. "Rest while you can," Reynolds whispered to the distant enemy. "We're coming." The legend of the Nemesis was about to grow again. The Nemesis moved through space like a shadow, its dark hull absorbing nearby starlight. Inside the bridge, Captain Reynolds studied the holographic display showing their destination, the Vega outpost, or rather, what remained of it. "Final approach to the Vega trading station," announced Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez from the helm. Her fingers moved confidently across the control panel, guiding the massive warship with precision that belied its size. "Stealth systems at maximum," added Tom Miller, the ship's chief engineer. Unlike most of the crew in their neat uniforms, Tom wore a utility vest covered in tools and had a perpetual smudge of grease somewhere on his face. "They won't see us coming." Reynolds nodded. "Let's hope there's something left to find." David scanned for survivors. David Chen, the ship's eye specialist, was already working his console. Young and brilliant, he had written half the Nemesis's adaptive algorithms himself. "No life signs detected, Captain. The station's been completely destroyed. Based on radiation signatures, I'd estimate the attack happened 48 hours ago." Reynolds frowned. Vega Outpost had been neutral territory, a trading hub where dozens of species conducted business. The Dominion's attack made no strategic sense, unless they were sending a message. The bridge doors slid open to admit their unwanted guest. Ambassador Vex of the Galactic Council moved with the floating grace of his species, 6 tentacle-like limbs mostly hidden beneath ornate robes. His large eyes blinked rapidly as he took in the bridge. "Captain Reynolds," the ambassador said, his translator converting the clicks and whistles of his native language. "Have we arrived at the crime scene?" Reynolds gestured toward the view screen where the remains of the station were becoming visible. "See for yourself." The destruction was absolute. What had once been a bustling outpost housing over 5,000 beings was now a field of debris. Twisted metal and frozen bodies drifted in the vacuum. Ambassador Vex's skin turned a pale blue, a sign of distress in his species. "This is worse than we feared. The Dominion has never been so thorough in their destruction before." "They were looking for something," Reynolds said, pacing the bridge. David analyzed the attack pattern. "Maria, take us in closer. Keep scanning for any active data cores that might have survived." As the Nemesis drifted through the wreckage, Tom's console began beeping. "Captain, I'm picking up an energy signature at the edge of the debris field. It's faint, but it matches Dominion technology." "A trap?" Reynolds asked. Tom shook his head. "Doesn't look like it. Might be a damaged ship or an escape pod." "Approach with caution," Reynolds ordered. "Shields at maximum. Ambassador, you might want to hold onto something." The Nemesis glided toward the energy signature, weapons systems quietly humming to life. The ship's legendary adaptive shields, capable of analyzing enemy weapons and adjusting their frequencies in real time, created a barely visible shimmer around the hull. "It's a Dominion scout ship," Maria reported. "Heavily damaged. 1 life sign aboard." Reynolds smiled grimly. "Perfect. Let's go fishing." 2 hours later, Reynolds stood in the Nemesis detention center, watching the prisoner through one-way glass. The Dominion soldier belonged to the Krek species, reptilian, aggressive, and known for their fanatical loyalty. "He's not going to talk easily," said Maria, who had joined Reynolds for the interrogation. "Krek's soldiers are conditioned to resist questioning." "Everyone talks eventually," Reynolds replied, "especially when they realize their masters have abandoned them." He entered the room, Ambassador Vex trailing behind him. The Krek soldier hissed, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Human filth," the soldier spat. "Kill me and be done with it." Reynolds calmly took a seat across from him. "Why would I kill my only source of information? I'm more interested in why the Dominion is suddenly attacking neutral outposts." "I will tell you nothing." Reynolds smiled. You don't have to. He nodded to Maria, who activated a small device. A holographic display appeared, showing the scout ship's navigational data. Your ship's computer was damaged, but not completely destroyed. We know where you've been, and we know where your fleet was headed next. The Krex soldier's eyes widened slightly. A tell. What I don't know, Reynolds continued, is why the Dominion is suddenly interested in ancient artifacts. The data we recovered mentions something called the Archive. The prisoner's reaction was immediate and visceral. His scales rippled with fear. Ambassador Vex leaned forward. The Archive. That's just a myth. A repository of knowledge supposedly left by the first ones before they disappeared. Not a myth, the Krex soldier whispered, seemingly forgetting his earlier defiance. They found it. The Masters found its location. The Masters. Reynolds pressed. You mean the Dominion High Command? The soldier laughed, a harsh, grating sound. The High Command are just puppets now. The Harbingers have returned. They guide us to glorious purpose. Ambassador Vex's skin paled dramatically. Impossible. The Harbingers are just stories used to frighten children. An ancient species that supposedly seeded the galaxy with life and then disappeared. They never left, the soldier said, his eyes taking on a fanatic gleam. They waited. And now they've chosen the Dominion as their instrument. With the power of the Archive, they will reshape the galaxy as it was meant to be. Reynolds and Maria exchanged glances. This was far beyond a simple border skirmish or resource grab. Where is this Archive? Reynolds asked. The soldier smiled, revealing those sharp teeth again. You're already too late, human. The fleet departs for the Helios cluster tomorrow. The Archive will be ours, and then nothing, not even your precious nemesis, will stand against us. Back on the bridge, Reynolds called his senior staff together. Tom, Maria, David, and the ship's tactical officer, Lieutenant Alex Foster, gathered around the command table. What we're hearing makes no sense, Tom said, scratching his beard. The Harbingers are just myths. Every spacefaring species has some version of the story. Myths often have a basis in fact, David pointed out. And it would explain the Dominion's sudden change in tactics. They've always been aggressive, but never this destructive without clear purpose. Reynolds turned to Ambassador Vex. What does the Council know about the Helios cluster? It's an unexplored region, the ambassador admitted. Dangerous stellar phenomena have made it difficult to survey. If something is hidden there, something ancient, it could have remained undiscovered for millennia. Reynolds made his decision. Set a course for the Helios cluster. Maximum speed. We need to get there before the Dominion fleet. Captain, Maria said cautiously, even for the Nemesis, that's dangerous territory. The radiation alone is exactly why we're the only ship that can reach it in time. Reynolds finished for her. Our shields can adapt to the radiation. I need options, people. If the Dominion believes they found some kind of super weapon or ancient technology, we need to know what we're dealing with. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Ambassador Vex approached Reynolds. Captain, if the Harbingers are real, if they've truly returned, this could change everything we thought we knew about galactic history. Reynolds looked at the ambassador grimly. What concerns me more is how it might change our future. Whatever's waiting in the Helios cluster, we can't let the Dominion reach it first. The Nemesis altered course, its powerful engines flaring to life. The hunt had begun, not just for the Dominion fleet, but for answers to a mystery as old as the stars themselves. The Helios cluster glowed like a wound in space, its swirling gases illuminated by the light of unstable stars. The Nemesis hovered at its edge, sensors probing the dangerous region ahead. Radiation levels are off the charts, Tom reported from his engineering station. His normally cheerful face was creased with concern. Even with our adaptive shields, we'll only have about 6 hours before systems start degrading. Captain Reynolds nodded, studying the holographic map floating above the central console. Any sign of the Dominion fleet? David adjusted his instruments. Nothing yet, but all this interference makes long-range scanning difficult. They could be. Wait. He straightened suddenly. Contact. 3 Dominion warships at the edge of our sensor range. Patrol vessels, Lieutenant Alex Foster said, analyzing the tactical display. Scout class. They haven't spotted us yet. Reynolds smiled grimly. Good. That means the main fleet hasn't arrived. Let's keep it that way. Maria, take us in, silent running. Stay in the radiation shadow of that larger asteroid. As Maria guided the ship forward, Ambassador Vex approached Reynolds, his large eyes blinking rapidly in anxiety. Captain, I must object to this course of action, the ambassador said. The Council authorized you to gather intelligence, not to engage the Dominion directly. With all due respect, Ambassador, Reynolds replied without taking his eyes off the display. We're in unexplored space chasing myths and legends. The rules of engagement just changed. The tension on the bridge was thick as the Nemesis slipped silently through the cluster. Every crew member knew what was at stake. If the prisoner was right about the Harbingers, about this mysterious archive, they couldn't afford to wait for Council approval. We're within visual range of the patrol ships, Maria announced. They're in standard search formation, scanning the inner cluster. Reynolds moved to the tactical station. Alex, target their engines and communication arrays. Precision strikes only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Aye, Captain. Alex's fingers danced across his console, weapons locked and ready. Reynolds took a deep breath. Fire. The Nemesis's advanced weaponry came to life with barely a tremor. 4 brilliant energy beams lanced out into space, striking the unsuspecting Dominion vessels with surgical precision. The first 2 ships immediately lost power, drifting helplessly. The third managed to fire a single wild shot before its weapons went offline. Direct hits on all targets, Alex reported with professional satisfaction. All 3 vessels are disabled. Any distress signals? Reynolds asked. David shook his head. We got their communications before they could send anything. The Dominion fleet won't know what happened. Good work, everyone, Reynolds said. Tom, prepare a boarding party. I want their navigational data and any information about this archive. 2 hours later, Reynolds stood in the Nemesis's war room with his senior officers and 3 prisoners, Dominion commanders captured from the patrol ships. Unlike the fanatical Krex soldier they'd captured earlier, these officers belonged to the Turcan species. Tall, slender beings with gray skin and 4 eyes positioned around their elongated heads. Your ships have been disabled, your crews confined, Reynolds told them calmly. Tell us about the archive and the Harbingers, and you'll be treated fairly. The lead Turcan, who had identified himself as Commander Kforl, stared at Reynolds with undisguised hatred. You have no idea what forces you're interfering with, human. The Harbingers have chosen the Dominion. Your species is nothing but an evolutionary mistake that will be corrected soon enough. Tom snorted. Friendly bunch, aren't they? Reynolds leaned forward. Let me make something clear, Commander. Right now, your main fleet doesn't know you've been captured. They don't know the Nemesis is here. That can change with a single transmission. He paused. Tell me what I want to know, and perhaps we can reach an accommodation. The Turcan commanders exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. The archive is real, Sorrel said finally. An ancient repository of knowledge and technology left by the Harbingers. For millennia, it was just a legend, until 3 months ago when our deep space archaeologists discovered references to its location in the ruins on Proxima Vitae. And these Harbingers, Ambassador Vex interrupted. You claim they've returned. Tavtoral's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. They never left. They'd been dormant, waiting for worthy successors to claim their legacy. The Dominion proved worthy. How convenient, Maria muttered. The archive contains weapons. Sorrel continued, ignoring the interruption. Weapons that will allow us to reshape the galaxy according to the Harbinger's original vision. A unified order under one rule. Reynolds studied the alien commander. You believe this? That some ancient species has chosen the Dominion as their heirs? I have seen them, human. Sorrel replied, his voice dropping to a near whisper. I have spoken with the Harbinger emissary. Their power is beyond comprehension. Before Reynolds could respond, the ship's alert system activated with a shrill warning. Captain to the bridge. David's voice came over the comm. Multiple contacts approaching fast. When Reynolds reached the bridge, the situation was already critical. The main view screen showed at least 15 Dominion warships entering the cluster, including 3 massive dreadnoughts. They must have been waiting just outside sensor range, Alex said, already activating defensive systems. They'll be within weapons range in 3 minutes. Reynolds took his command chair. Battle stations. Shields at maximum. Ambassador, I suggest you find somewhere secure to wait this out. Ambassador Vex, however, remained on the bridge. Captain, there are too many. Even the Nemesis can't stand against a fleet this size. We should retreat, report to the Council. And let them reach the archive first. Reynolds shook his head. Not an option. He turned to his crew. Tom, divert all available power to shields and weapons. Maria, plot an intercept course. David, scan for weaknesses in their formation. As the crew prepared for battle, Reynolds studied the approaching enemy fleet. The odds were overwhelming, but the Nemesis had faced long odds before. What made this ship truly feared throughout the galaxy wasn't just its advanced technology. It was the human ability to adapt, to think laterally, to find solutions where none seemed possible. Captain, David said suddenly, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the lead dreadnought. It's like nothing I've ever seen before. Reynolds frowned. A new weapon? Possibly. Or, David worked his console feverishly. Captain, I think they've already found something from the archive. That energy signature doesn't match any known technology in our database. Time to intercept. Reynolds asked. 2 minutes, Maria replied. Reynolds stood, addressing his crew. This is what the Nemesis was built for. We're outnumbered, yes, but they expect us to either run or fight conventionally. A grim smile crossed his face. Let's show them why humans are the most unpredictable species in the galaxy. The Nemesis surged forward, its engines flaring brilliantly against the backdrop of the Helios cluster. As the distance to the Dominion fleet closed, Reynolds gave an order that made even Ambassador Vex stare in disbelief. All power to forward shields. Set collision course for the lead dreadnought. The Nemesis accelerated, becoming a dark arrow aimed directly at the heart of the enemy fleet. On every Dominion ship, alarms would be sounding. Commanders shouting orders, gunners scrambling to target the human vessel apparently intent on suicide. It was exactly the confusion Reynolds had been counting on. Now, Maria, he commanded, execute maneuver Theta. At the last possible moment, the Nemesis veered sharply, cutting between 2 dreadnoughts. Its weapons fired in a precise pattern, targeting engines, weapons arrays, and shield generators. 3 smaller Dominion vessels, unable to adjust their course in time, collided with each other in their hurry to avoid the human warship. Hit and run, Reynolds ordered. Keep moving. Don't give them a stationary target. The battle had begun, and the legend of the Nemesis was about to grow even larger. The Nemesis shuddered as another volley of enemy fire struck its shields. Captain Reynolds gripped the arms of his command chair, watching as damage reports flooded the tactical display. Shields at 42%, Tom called out from engineering, his voice tense but controlled. Smoke drifted from a damaged console nearby, and emergency lights cast an eerie red glow over the bridge. That last hit damaged the port stabilizers. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Through the view screen, Reynolds watched the ongoing battle. Despite the Nemesis' impressive showing, 5 enemy vessels disabled, 2 destroyed. The Dominion fleet still outnumbered them significantly. The three dreadnoughts had moved into a triangular formation, trying to trap the human warship between them. "Maria, evasive pattern Delta," Reynolds ordered. "David, what's the status of that lead dreadnought? The one with the strange energy readings?" David, working frantically at his station, looked up with concern. "It's holding position at the edge of the battle. Captain, the energy signature is growing stronger. I think they're charging something big." Before Reynolds could respond, the Nemesis rocked violently. Sparks cascaded from overhead panels, and several crew members were thrown from their stations. "Direct hit to our aft section," Alex shouted over the blaring alarms. "Shields failing." Reynolds made an instant decision. "Get us out of here. Full retreat into the cluster." Maria didn't question the order, immediately altering their course. The Nemesis turned sharply, its engines flaring as it accelerated away from the Dominion fleet toward the dense heart of the Helios cluster. Ambassador Vex, who had remained on the bridge despite the danger, approached Reynolds. "Captain, the radiation levels deeper in the cluster are lethal. Even your adaptive shields won't protect us for long." "They don't know that," Reynolds replied grimly. "And right now, I'll take radiation over those dreadnoughts." As the Nemesis plunged deeper into the swirling gases and debris of the cluster, the energy readings from the lead Dominion dreadnought peaked. A brilliant beam of green energy lanced out, cutting through space where the Nemesis had been moments before. "What was that?" Tom demanded, his eyes wide as he studied the readings. "That weapon would have cut right through our shields if it had hit us. Hardinger technology," Ambassador Vex whispered, his skin pale with fear. The legend spoke of weapons that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. Reynolds watched the tactical display as the Dominion fleet hesitated at the edge of the cluster. "They're not following us in." "Good. That gives us time." He turned to his crew. "Damage report." The news wasn't good. The Nemesis had sustained significant damage to its propulsion systems and weapons arrays. Shields were functioning at minimal levels, and several decks had been sealed off due to hull breaches. "We need time to make repairs," Tom said, already organizing repair teams. "At least 12 hours to get us back to fighting condition." Reynolds nodded. "Find us somewhere to hide, Maria. Somewhere the radiation and debris will mask our signature." "There's a dense nebula formation about 20 kilometers ahead," Maria reported. "It should provide cover, but..." She hesitated. "The radiation levels there are extreme, Captain. Even with repairs, we can't stay long." "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," Reynolds said. "For now, get us there and power down all non-essential systems. Alex, keep passive sensors running. I want to know if anything approaches." As the Nemesis limped into the concealing clouds of the nebula, Reynolds called his senior staff to the damaged war room. They needed a new plan. "The Dominion fleet is holding position at the edge of the cluster," Alex reported, pointing to the tactical display. "They've established a perimeter. They're waiting for something." "Reinforcements, most likely," Ambassador Vex suggested. "If they've truly aligned with these harbingers, who knows what forces they might bring to bear." Reynolds studied the data they'd gathered. "What about this archive? Do we have any idea where exactly it's located?" David nodded, bringing up a three-dimensional map of the cluster. "Based on the navigational data we recovered from the patrol ships, I believe it's here." He highlighted a region near the center of the cluster. "There's something unusual about this section. The radiation patterns don't match natural formations. An artificial structure?" Tom asked. "Possibly. Something is affecting the surrounding space. It could be some kind of shielding or cloaking technology," David answered. Reynolds considered their options. The Nemesis was damaged, outnumbered, and deep in hostile territory. By all logical measures, they should retreat, return to council space, and report what they'd discovered. That would be the prudent course of action. But humans hadn't become the most feared species in the galaxy by being prudent. "We need to reach the archive before they do," Reynolds said finally. If even half of what we've heard is true, we can't let that kind of power fall into Dominion hands, or these harbingers, whatever they are. With respect, Captain, Maria interjected, how do we get past a blockade of 15 warships with our current damage? Reynolds smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. We don't. We go through the cluster itself. Tom looked aghast. Through the densest part. The radiation would fry our systems in minutes. Not if we modify the shields. Reynolds countered. David, you've been studying the cluster's radiation patterns. Is there any way we could adapt our shielding to withstand it, even temporarily? David hesitated, then nodded slowly. Theoretically, yes. If we reconfigure the shield harmonics to match the specific radiation frequencies of the cluster. He trailed off, already working through calculations in his head. Do it, Reynolds ordered. Tom, I need every bit of power you can give us for the shields. Strip non-essential systems if you have to. As his officers dispersed to carry out their tasks, Ambassador Vex remained behind. I've been watching you, Captain, the ambassador said quietly. All these years, the Council has tried to understand what makes humans different from other species. Why your ships, especially the Nemesis, are so feared. Reynolds raised an eyebrow. And, have you figured it out? I believe so. Vex's large eyes studied Reynolds carefully. It's not your technology. It's not even your unpredictable tactics. It's your nature as persistence hunters. Persistence hunters. Yes, most intelligent species evolved from prey animals or from ambush predators. They either flee from danger or strike quickly and retreat if unsuccessful. The ambassador gestured at the tactical display, showing the overwhelming odds against them. But humans, you never stop. You pursue your prey relentlessly, adapting, overcoming obstacles, no matter how long it takes. When a human ship like the Nemesis starts hunting you, the galaxy has learned there is no escape. You will find a way, no matter the cost. Reynolds considered this. An interesting theory, Ambassador. But right now, we're the ones being hunted. Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. Are you? Or are you merely changing the nature of the hunt? The ambassador moved toward the door, then paused. Your ship's name is aptly chosen, Captain. In human mythology, Nemesis was the goddess of retribution against those who showed arrogance before the gods. I wonder which side of this conflict has shown such arrogance. After the ambassador left, Reynolds returned to the bridge. Repair teams worked frantically around him, welding damaged panels, rerouting power systems, and patching hull breaches. Despite their desperate situation, not one crew member suggested retreat. The humans of the Nemesis were indeed persistence hunters. And now, deep in the heart of the Helios cluster, surrounded by enemies and deadly radiation, they prepared to continue their hunt. The true enemy waited ahead, ancient, powerful, and arrogant. They had never faced humans before. They had never faced the Nemesis. They would learn, as countless others had learned, why this human ship was the most feared vessel in the galaxy. The Nemesis drifted through the heart of the Helios cluster, its modified shields glowing with an eerie blue light as they filtered the deadly radiation. Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge, watching as the impossible structure came into view ahead of them. The archive was nothing like what any of them had imagined. It wasn't a planet or a space station. It appeared to be a massive crystalline structure, shaped like a perfect dodecahedron, each face glittering with internal light. It hung in space, seemingly untouched by the chaos of the surrounding cluster, as if the laws of physics simply didn't apply to it. Size estimate, Reynolds asked quietly. Approximately 200 kilometers across, David replied, his voice filled with awe. The energy readings are, well, they're beyond anything in our database. The structure appears to be made of some kind of crystalline material, but it's unlike any element we've encountered. Ambassador Vex stood transfixed by the sight. The archive of the Harbingers, he whispered. It's real. And we're not the only ones who found it, Alex said grimly, pointing to the tactical display. 3 Dominion ships approaching from the far side. Smaller vessels. They must have slipped through the cluster while the main fleet maintained the blockade. Reynolds nodded. They were never going to risk their dreadnoughts in here. These ships are expendable. He turned to Maria. How long until they reach the archive? 10 minutes, maybe less, she answered. We're closer, but with our damaged engines. Then we need to move now, Reynolds decided. Tom, give us everything the engines have left. Alex, ready what weapons we have. We may only get one shot at this. As the Nemesis limped forward, its battle-scarred hull reflecting the glow of the archive, Reynolds felt a strange calm settle over him. They had come too far to fail now. Beyond the view screen, the vast crystalline structure grew larger, magnificent, and terrifying in its alien perfection. Captain, David called suddenly, I'm detecting an energy surge from the archive. It's scanning us. Before anyone could respond, a beam of pure white light shot from the archive, engulfing the Nemesis. The ship's systems flickered, displays went dark for a moment, then returned to normal. What was that? Reynolds demanded. Some kind of scanning technology, David replied, checking his readings. It didn't damage any systems, but it penetrated every part of the ship, right down to the molecular level. A new alert sounded. The Dominion vessels are accelerating, Alex reported. They'll reach the archive in 5 minutes. Reynolds made his decision. Take us in. Full speed. The Nemesis surged forward, closing the distance to the archive. As they approached, one of the massive crystal faces began to change, the solid surface rippling like water. A vast opening appeared, revealing the cavernous interior glowing with the same ethereal light. It's inviting us in, Tom said, bewildered. Or it's a trap, Alex countered. Reynolds studied the opening. David, any sign of weapons powering up, force fields, anything defensive? Nothing, Captain. The structure remains passive. The Dominion ships are changing course, Maria reported. They're making directly for us now. Weapons hot. Reynolds took a deep breath. Take us inside. The Nemesis passed through the opening, entering a vast chamber that defied comprehension. The interior of the archive was larger than should have been physically possible, with soaring crystalline columns and platforms suspended in space. Everything glowed with internal light, creating an environment of otherworldly beauty. It's bigger on the inside, Tom muttered. That's not possible. According to our understanding of physics, no, David agreed, studying his readings in fascination. But clearly, the Harbingers operated on principles we don't yet comprehend. As the Nemesis glided further into the chamber, the opening behind them began to close. The Dominion ships, realizing they were about to be shut out, fired desperately. Energy weapons struck the crystal surface of the archive, but dissipated harmlessly. The archive is sealing itself, Alex said. The Dominion ships can't get in. A moment later, the opening vanished entirely, leaving the Nemesis alone inside the impossible structure. The ship's engines powered down automatically, and they found themselves held in place by some unseen force. Now what? Maria asked, looking around nervously. Her question was answered almost immediately. A figure materialized on the bridge, a being of pure energy, vaguely humanoid in shape, but constantly shifting, ripples of blue and white light flowing through its form. Greetings, travelers, the being said, its voice resonating directly in their minds rather than through their ears. I am the keeper of the archive. We have been waiting a very long time for worthy successors. Reynolds stepped forward cautiously. We are from Earth. My name is Captain Jack Reynolds of the starship Nemesis. We know who you are, humans, the keeper replied. Just as we know of the Dominion and their misguided alliance with those who claim to be harbingers. The energy being's form rippled with what might have been amusement. They are not what they claim to be. Ambassador Vex moved to stand beside Reynolds. Then what are they? Who are the true harbingers? The harbingers were the first sentient species in this galaxy, the keeper explained. They arose billions of years ago, flourished, and eventually transcended physical form. The beings guiding the Dominion are merely echoes, broken fragments of consciousness left behind, corrupted by time and isolation. And the archive? Reynolds asked. What exactly is it? It is the sum total of Harbinger knowledge and technology, the Keeper said, created to guide younger species when they were ready. Many have found their way here over the eons, but none passed the final test, until now. What test? Reynolds asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. The test of intent, the Keeper replied simply. When faced with power beyond measure, what would you do with it? The Dominion sought conquest. They would use our knowledge as weapons to subjugate others. But you, humans, the energy being's form brightened. You came not to claim power, but to prevent its misuse. Despite being outnumbered, despite facing certain defeat, you persisted. Not for conquest, but for protection. Reynolds looked around at his crew, humans who had risked everything on this impossible mission. So what happens now? Now you have a choice, the Keeper said. The archive contains knowledge that could elevate your species to heights you cannot imagine. Technologies that would make you undisputed masters of the galaxy. It is yours to claim. Reynolds considered this for a long moment. Then he shook his head. No, that's not why we came. The Keeper's form pulsed with light. Explain. We came to stop the Dominion from gaining that power, yes. But we don't seek to replace them as conquerors. Reynolds gestured to his ship, the battle-scarred nemesis that had become legend throughout the galaxy. We built this ship as a protector, not just for humans, but for all species who wish to live in peace. If the archive contains knowledge, it should be shared with all who would use it wisely, not hoarded by any single species. A profound silence fell across the bridge. The Keeper's energy form seemed to grow brighter, more defined. In all our long watching, no species has ever given such an answer, the Keeper said finally. And that, Captain Reynolds, is why humans are truly worthy. The being of energy expanded, enveloping the bridge in gentle light. Return to your galaxy. Deal with the corrupted echoes that call themselves harbingers. When you are ready, when all the sentient species of your galaxy are ready, the true archive will be waiting. The light intensified, blinding in its brilliance. When it faded, the nemesis was no longer inside the archive. They hovered in open space, the Helios cluster behind them. Ahead, they could see the distant stars of Council space. More surprising, the ship had been completely repaired. Every damaged system, every battle scar, gone. Captain, Alex said in amazement, the Dominion fleet. They're in retreat. All of them. And there's something else. The energy signature we detected from their lead dreadnought is gone. Whatever Harbinger technology they had has been neutralized. Reynolds nodded slowly, understanding. The Keeper has given us a chance. Not dominance, but opportunity. On the journey back to Council space, the legend of the Nemesis grew yet again, but not as a ship of destruction. The story spread of how the feared human warship had faced down the combined might of the Dominion and emerged victorious, not through superior firepower, but through the uniquely human qualities of persistence, sacrifice, and mercy. When offered the power to rule the galaxy, humans had chosen a different path. And that perhaps was why they were the most feared and most respected species among the stars.